This is my true story. My wife was the only person I thought I could trust after my family fell apart. I believed she was my support, my partner, the last bit of love I had left. But last month, I pretended I was going on a trip. And what I discovered shattered me more than any loss I've ever lived through. I caught her living a whole different life behind my back. What I saw felt like someone ripping my heart out with their bare hands. And what happened next changed everything. Before I tell you, tell me where you're watching from. And please subscribe so my stories can reach more people. After I lost my son, my whole world fell apart. The pain was so strong that some days I could barely breathe. I felt like the ground under my feet had opened and swallowed everything I cared about. The only person left beside me was my wife. I held on to her like a man hanging from the edge of a cliff. I thought she hurt the same way I did. I thought we were two broken people trying to survive the same loss. I believed we were both fighting to keep what little family we had left. I trusted her completely. She was the last person I thought would ever hurt me. I looked at her every morning and told myself she was the reason I was still standing. I told myself her presence was the only thing keeping me alive. When I cried for our boy, she held my hand. When I couldn't sleep at night, she lay beside me in silence. When I felt guilty for still breathing while our son was gone, she told me to keep going. I let myself believe she was my strength. I let myself believe she was carrying the same heavy grief inside her chest. I let myself believe her heart was tied to mine. But grief can blind you. It can make you hold on to things that are already slipping away. It can make you trust a person who is not the same person anymore. I didn't see the distance forming in her eyes. I didn't see her smiles growing smaller. I didn't see how she pulled her hand away faster every time I reached for it. I thought it was sadness. I thought it was trauma. I thought she just needed time to heal. I never imagined it was because her life had already turned in another direction. I told myself she was my lifeline, and maybe that was my biggest mistake. Because when you depend on one person to keep you standing, you don't notice when they stop standing with you. I loved her with everything I had left. Even on the days when I felt empty, I gave her the little strength I still had. I cooked for her. I checked on her. I tried to talk to her. I told her I was scared of losing her too. She always nodded, always whispered something soft, always acted like she felt the same. But something was wrong. Deep inside, I felt a small crack forming, a cold feeling I tried to ignore. A feeling that told me I was holding on to a shadow of the woman I married. I pushed that feeling down because I couldn't handle losing her too. I didn't want to imagine a world where she wasn't mine. So I convinced myself everything was fine. I convinced myself she was just hurting. I convinced myself she still loved me the way I loved her. I never imagined the truth was so far from what I believed. I never imagined she could smile at another man the way she used to smile at me. I never imagined she could whisper the same soft voice to someone else. I never imagined she could stand in our home, in the place we built together, and live a different life behind my back. I never imagined she could take advantage of my broken heart, my trust, my grief. I thought she was my comfort. I thought she was my partner. I thought she was the last good thing I had left in this world. But the truth was crueler than anything I could have expected. She was the one who would break me the most. I didn't know it yet. But the love I thought I had was already gone, and I was the only one still holding on to it. The first cracks showed up quietly, the way heavy rain begins with one small drop. At first, I didn't think much of it. A late phone call here, a sudden excuse there. She started keeping her phone face down on the table. She used to leave it anywhere, even in the bathroom, without worry. Now she kept it glued to her hand like it held her whole life inside it. A life I wasn't allowed to see. She started going for walks at strange hours. She said she needed fresh air, But she never came back with that tired sadness grief usually brings. Instead, she came back looking lighter. And that scared me more than anything. I tried to tell myself she was just hurting differently than I was. Everyone grieves in their own way. That's what people always say. But grief doesn't make you hide messages. Grief doesn't make you smile at a screen when you think no one is watching. Grief doesn't make you turn cold when your husband reaches out to hold your hand. She didn't pull away harshly, but she pulled away just enough that I felt the space growing between us like a quiet wound. There were nights she stayed up long after I went to bed. I'd wake up and hear her downstairs, whispering in a voice too gentle to be grief I didn't want to think anything bad. I told myself she might be talking to a friend for support. But why whisper? Why hide? Why stop talking when I walked into the room? Why close the laptop so fast she almost broke the screen? These were small things, but small things can cut deeper than a knife when you already feel fragile. I asked her if everything was okay. She always said yes. Her yes felt thin, like it barely had breath behind it. She started leaving earlier in the mornings and coming home later at night. She said she joined a group therapy session. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I wanted her to heal, to feel safe, to feel held. But sometimes she came home with a look on her face that didn't match therapy. Her eyes were brighter, her clothes carefully chosen, her hair fixed just a little too nicely for someone who spent hours crying with strangers. I noticed smells too. New perfume I didn't buy for her. A scent of cologne that wasn't mine when she hugged me lightly before pulling away. She said it came from sitting next to someone in the waiting room. I nodded and pretended to believe it, but it felt like a lie sliding across my skin. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to be right. I didn't want the truth to destroy whatever was still left between us. She started avoiding pictures of our son. She used to look at them every day, touching the frame with trembling fingers. Now she passed them like they were old trash. She didn't say his name anymore. She didn't sit by the couch where we cried together. She didn't ask how I was feeling. Instead, she asked if I was going anywhere that day, what time I'd be home, how long I'd be gone. Those questions weren't about love. They were about schedules, timing, planning. I didn't see it then, but those were the questions of someone organizing a secret life, not someone saving a broken marriage. Sometimes I caught her staring at the door like she was waiting for something, or someone. When I asked if she was okay, she would jump like she was startled back into the world she shared with me. Her smile became a stranger's smile. Small and forced, like she was wearing her face instead of living in it. The warmth she once had for me slowly became a cold wall I couldn't climb, no matter how hard I tried. I thought losing my son was the worst pain life could give me, but watching the woman I loved drift away without saying a word was worse. Because when someone dies, you know they're gone, but when someone stays and stops loving you, you feel them disappear piece by piece while you're still looking right at them. And that kind of disappearance hurts in a way nobody prepares you for. The day I set the trap, I felt something inside me break for good. I woke up knowing I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I couldn't ignore the long hours, the hidden phone, the coldness in her touch. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I needed the truth, even if it destroyed whatever little strength I had left. So I told her I had a work trip in Miami. I said I would be gone for 3 days. I packed a suitcase, put in clothes, folded shirts, placed a toothbrush on top, all just for show. I walked around the room like a man getting ready for a normal day, but inside, I felt dead. I kissed her goodbye at the door. She hugged me, but her arms felt weak. Like she didn't want me to stay or go. She just wanted me out of the way. She didn't ask me to call when I landed. She didn't ask if I needed anything. She just smiled a thin smile and closed the door softly behind me. That soft closing hurt more than any slam. It told me she wasn't sad to see me leave. She was relieved. I didn't drive far. I turned the corner and parked behind a row of trees where she couldn't see me. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit for a few minutes just to breathe. I hated what I was about to do, but I knew if I didn't do it, I would lose my mind. I took out my phone and opened the hidden camera app I installed a few days earlier. It wasn't something I ever thought I would need. I never imagined planting a camera in my own living room, in the home I built with love and hope. But when trust dies, desperate men do desperate things. I kept staring at the screen, waiting. The living room was empty, quiet, still. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I was wrong, that I was the one overthinking, that grief had twisted my mind. I almost started the engine to drive back home and apologize for doubting her. But then I remembered every cold glance, every whispered call, every lie she fed me with a straight face. And I stayed parked. I stayed quiet. I stayed watching. Minutes passed. Long minutes that felt like needles poking at my chest. She walked into the living room on the screen. She looked around like she was checking if the walls could hear her. Then she fixed her hair in the mirror. She changed her shirt. She sprayed perfume, the one she never wore around me anymore. And that was when I knew a wife doesn't dress like that for a day spent grieving. She dresses like that for someone who makes her feel alive in ways her husband no longer does. My hand tightened around the phone. My heart felt like it was shrinking, squeezing itself smaller just to survive the blow it knew was coming. I watched her walk back and forth, straightening cushions, lighting a candle, checking the clock again and again. She wasn't sad, she wasn't broken, she wasn't lonely, she was preparing for someone who wasn't me. I sat there in my car, breathing hard, feeling the betrayal before it even happened. My mind replayed every moment of our marriage, all the promises we made, all the times I held her during storms, all the nights we cried together after losing our boy. And now she was using that same living room for something else, something that didn't include me, something that never should have existed in the first place. The trap wasn't meant to hurt her, it was meant to show me the truth. But as I watched her move around the house like a woman waiting for a lover, I realized the truth was about to hurt me more than anything I had ever lived through. I didn't set the trap to catch her. I set the trap to confirm something my heart already knew. The woman I loved was no longer living the same life as me. Within 1 hour of me leaving for Miami, the truth walked straight through my front door like it belonged there. I watched it all on my phone from the driver's seat of my car. A man I had never seen before stepped inside my home with the confidence of someone who had been there many times. He didn't hesitate. He didn't look confused. He didn't act like a guest. He acted like a second husband walking into a life he had built with my wife while I was busy grieving the family we lost. He put his arms around her the moment she closed the door. She smiled, not a polite smile, not a nervous smile, but a soft, warm smile I hadn't seen in years. A smile she used to save only for me. A smile I thought grief had stolen forever. But grief didn't steal it. She just gave it to someone else. I felt my stomach twist. My hands went cold. I wanted to throw the phone, but I forced myself to keep watching, because this was the truth I needed, even if it destroyed me piece by piece. The man sat on my couch like it was his own. The same couch where she once cried in my arms after our son died. The same couch where I held her hands and told her we would survive the pain together. Now another man sat there laughing with her while she rested her head on his shoulder. They touched each other with a softness she hadn't shown me in years. She ran her fingers along his arm the way she used to run them along mine when we were young. They kissed like they weren't hiding from anything, like they didn't care about the life they were stepping on. They moved around the house like it was their home. She brought him a drink in my favorite glass. He put his feet on the table I built with my own hands. She sat beside him and leaned into him as if he was the man she shared a life with, the man she trusted, the man she loved. And every second of it played on my phone in silence, like a slow, cruel movie. They whispered things to each other. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. The way her face softened told me everything. She was sharing secrets with him, the same way she once shared everything with me. I kept watching, even though every moment felt like a blade digging deeper. I watched her laugh, a real laugh, full and bright. She hadn't laughed like that with me in years. I thought trauma took that laugh from her. I thought losing our son stole that sound forever. But I was wrong. She just saved it for a man who wasn't her husband. And that was the moment the truth settled inside me like a weight I could never lift. She wasn't grieving with me. She had moved on completely, secretly, shamelessly. She built a whole new life behind my back, one that didn't include me, one she protected with lies and soft smiles and quiet excuses. Watching her betrayal wasn't like a punch. It was slower, deeper, like someone pressing their hand into my chest and squeezing until my heart stopped trying to beat. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, staring at the screen, letting the truth burn every memory I thought was real. I watched them wrap themselves in a life I thought belonged to me. I watched the woman who once held my broken heart lean into another man like he was her comfort. And in that moment, I understood something cruel. She didn't lose herself after our son died. She lost me. She let me fade away while she rebuilt herself with someone else. She wasn't broken. She wasn't lost. She wasn't drowning in grief like I was. She was living again, loving again, laughing again, just not with me. And nothing in this world cuts deeper than realizing the person you held on to with everything you had already let go of you long before you caught them. I waited until I couldn't feel my hands anymore. I don't know if it was the cold or the shock or the pain crushing my chest. I watched them get comfortable in my house, laughing, touching, relaxing like they owned the air inside those walls. Something inside me went numb, not angry, not wild, just numb, like my heart had finally stopped fighting to believe the lie I'd been living in. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the house with slow, heavy steps. Every footstep felt like I was walking toward a funeral. The funeral of my marriage, the funeral of my trust, the funeral of the life I thought I still had. I stood at my own front door, the same door I used to open with a smile, the same door where she once hugged me after long days. Now it felt like a barrier between two different worlds. The world where I was a husband, and the world where I was nothing but a ghost she had already buried. I knocked once. Just once. I didn't pound. I didn't shout. I knocked like a man who already knew what waited behind that door. I kept my eyes steady. I kept my breathing slow. I didn't prepare for the scream. I didn't prepare for the fear in her face. I didn't prepare for her whole body collapsing inward when she saw me standing there. She opened the door, and the moment her eyes met mine, her whole world froze. Her smile died instantly. Her face drained of color. Her lips trembled like she'd seen something impossible. She didn't even have to look at my hands to know I had seen everything. She could see it in my eyes. The truth, the betrayal, the pain she caused behind her. I heard the man move. He didn't come forward. He didn't speak. He slipped out of sight like a rat running from light. He disappeared into the hallway, into another room, anywhere that wasn't near me. His fear didn't surprise me. Cowards always run when real consequences show up. She stood there alone, shaking so badly the door rattled in her hand. I didn't say a single word. I didn't need to. I pulled out my phone and held the screen toward her. The footage played in silence, her laugh, her touch, her betrayal recorded in perfect detail. She watched it like she was watching her own life crumble piece by piece. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. She tried to find lies, excuses, anything to cover the truth. But lies have no air when the truth is standing right in front of them. Her hands went to her face. She backed up like she wanted to disappear into the wall. I stepped inside the house, and the warmth felt sickening. The candle she lit for him filled the air with a soft smell that used to mean love, but now it smelled like betrayal. My couch, my table, my home. All of it felt dirty. All of it felt like a scene from someone else's life. She tried to speak again, but her voice cracked like thin glass. Nothing she said mattered. Nothing she ever said would matter after this. I walked deeper into the living room. I saw the pillow she fluffed, the blanket she folded for him, the glass she poured for him. All of it twisted something inside me until even breathing felt wrong. I looked around the room like I was seeing it for the first time. This wasn't a home. This was a hiding place for a life she built behind my back. A place where she saved her smiles, her touches, her warmth, but not for me. Never for me. She followed behind me with slow, weak steps, afraid to get too close but afraid to stay too far. She kept reaching her hand out like she wanted to explain, wanted to beg, wanted to fix something that was already dead. But you cannot fix something you've been breaking for months. You cannot save a marriage you burned in secret. You cannot hold on to a man after you spent your time holding someone else. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I didn't need reasons. Betrayal doesn't need reasons to hurt. It just hurts. And as I stood there in the same room where we once shared our deepest pain, I realized she had turned that room into a place where she erased me completely. And that was the moment everything ended. Not with shouting, not with fighting, not with chaos. It ended with silence, the kind of silence that comes when the truth hits harder than any words ever could. She stood in front of me like a woman whose whole world had been ripped open in 1 second. Her hands shook. Her breath came in short, weak pieces. She kept staring at the phone in my hand like she wished she could reach inside the screen and erase every second of what she had done. But betrayal doesn't disappear. Lies don't fade when the truth shows up. She opened her mouth over and over, but nothing came out. Her face twisted with panic, guilt, fear, everything at once. It was the first time in a long time she felt anything real toward me. And it was only because she got caught. I didn't touch her. I didn't move toward her. I didn't ask for explanations. I didn't want to hear how she felt lonely, or how she needed someone, or how she wasn't herself. Betrayal always tries to blame something else, but she didn't cheat because of grief. She didn't cheat because of pain. She cheated because she chose to build a life without me, while still using my house, my trust, my love as her cover. And now that her secret was out, she looked at me like I was the danger, when really the danger had been living beside me the whole time. The man she was with peeked down the hallway, saw me standing there, and slipped right out through the back door. He didn't fight for her. He didn't defend her. He didn't even try to stand by her. He ran, and watching that made something inside me twist even harder. Because she ruined our marriage for a man who didn't have the courage to stay in the house for 5 seconds, once he saw the truth standing in the doorway. She built her second life around a man who treated her exactly the way she treated me. Easy to use, easy to leave behind. When he disappeared, she broke down even more. Her shoulders collapsed, her knees buckled. She grabbed the wall to hold herself up, But instead of reaching for me, instead of trying to explain to her husband, she reached toward the hallway where that man ran. That small movement hit me harder than anything else. She didn't look to me for safety. She didn't look to me for forgiveness. She looked toward him, the man she thought would save her, the man who ran from the first sign of trouble, and that tiny instinctive reach told me everything I needed to know about where her heart had been for months. It wasn't with me. It hadn't been with me for a long time. She tried to speak again, but the truth stayed stuck in her throat. She pressed her hands to her chest like she could hold herself together, but some things fall apart too completely to fix. She dropped her head and cried, loud, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. And I stood there watching, not because I wanted to make her suffer, but because the suffering was hers, not mine. She caused it. She earned it. She was drowning in the truth she tried so hard to hide. She kept saying my name like it was a lifeline, but it felt strange hearing it in her mouth now. It felt wrong. It felt fake. It felt like a word she only remembered because her secret life had fallen apart in front of her eyes. I stepped back, and the way she flinched told me she knew it was over. Not just the affair, not just the lies, everything, the home, the trust, the marriage, the years, the memories. All of it cracked like glass under the weight of what she had done. She reached for me, but I moved away. Not fast, not angry. Just enough to show her that the distance she created was real now. She tried to get closer, tried to touch my arm, tried to hold on to something she had already destroyed. I let her hand fall back to her side, and the look on her face, that moment when she realized nothing she said or did could undo the truth, was the moment everything inside her collapsed. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying for the life she lost, the life she threw away. I looked around the room one last time, the pillows she arranged for him, the candle she lit for him, the space she shared with him. And standing in the middle of the life she built behind my back, I understood something painful and final. This marriage had ended long before I walked through that door. I just hadn't accepted it yet. I didn't argue with her. I didn't shout. I didn't demand explanations she would twist into excuses. I just walked past her and sat down at the table. The same table where we once ate dinner together. The same table where we talked about our plans, our future, our son. Now the table felt like a stranger. She stood a few steps away, shaking so hard she could barely breathe. She kept begging with her eyes, waiting for me to say something, anything, something she could grab onto. But there was nothing left to grab. She had cut every rope between us with her own hands. The next morning I went to a lawyer, not out of anger, out of clarity. The moment I saw her with that man, everything inside me settled. I didn't need to fight. I didn't need to fix. I didn't need to stay. There is a silence that comes after heartbreak, a silence that tells you the story is finished. And I felt that silence the second I watched her betrayal unfold on my phone. It was over before I even confronted her. All I had to do now was walk the final steps toward the door she had already opened. Filing the divorce papers felt strangely easy, not painless, but simple. The lawyer asked if I was sure. I didn't hesitate. There was no marriage left to save. The woman I married was long gone, hidden behind lies, secrets, and stolen laughs she shared with another man. The person she became was someone I didn't recognize, and someone I no longer wanted to fight for. I signed my name with a steady hand. No shaking, no second doubts. Just the quiet acceptance that I deserved better than being the last to know in my own home. When I handed her the papers that evening, she broke down again. She collapsed into the chair like the world had finally crushed her. She kept saying she didn't want to lose me. She kept saying she loved me. She kept saying the affair didn't mean anything. But the problem with betrayal is not the words. It's the actions. You can't cheat on someone you love. You can't build another life and expect the first one to stay solid. She didn't just betray me once. She betrayed me every day she woke up beside me while planning a future with someone else. She begged me to talk. I didn't. I let her speak, cry, explain, break apart. She tried to touch my hand, but I moved away. She tried to stand close to me, but I stepped aside. Not out of anger, out of survival. When something is this broken, standing too close just cuts you deeper. The more she tried to hold on, the more I felt the weight of all the moments she didn't care enough to stay faithful. She said losing our son changed her. Maybe it did, but it changed me too. The difference was, I stayed loyal even when my heart was drowning. I stayed true even when the world felt empty. She didn't. Pain doesn't excuse betrayal. Nothing does. She didn't lose her way. She chose a different path, one that led her straight into another man's arms, while I sat alone trying to make sense of our grief. When she finally realized I wasn't going to fight for the marriage, something inside her went still. Not calm. Empty. She knew I wasn't coming back. She knew the man she cheated on was not going to be the man who saved her from the consequences. She had to stand in the ruins she created, and I had to walk away from them. I packed my things slowly, not because I was unsure, but because leaving a home you built with someone you loved hurts in ways words cannot explain. Every photo, every cup, every small object felt like a memory I didn't want anymore. I left most of it behind. I didn't need reminders of a life that no longer belonged to me. I walked out the door with one bag, one heart, one truth. The woman I married was not the woman I left behind. When the court finalized the divorce, she cried again. But her tears couldn't wash away months of lies. They couldn't bring back the version of her who once stood beside me honestly. They couldn't undo the moment she opened the door for another man. And as I walked away from her that last day, I felt something surprising. Not anger, not revenge, just freedom. The freedom that comes when you stop trying to save someone who already gave up on you long ago. When the divorce was done, I walked into an empty house that didn't feel like mine anymore. The silence felt heavier than pain. It sounded like someone dragging chains across the floor. I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed where she once slept beside me, and the space next to me felt like a cold hole. I thought leaving her would bring peace right away, but it didn't. It brought a deep, aching quiet that cut into my chest. The kind of quiet you feel in your bones. The kind of quiet that reminds you that you are alone, truly alone, for the first time in years. My son hadn't spoken to me in so long that sometimes I forgot what his voice sounded like. Grief took him far away from me, and he never came back. My wife was the only person I thought still needed me, still cared about me, still wanted to face life with me. Losing her felt like losing the last bit of family I had left. I wasn't just a man who lost a marriage. I was a man stripped of every person he once loved. I sat in the living room staring at the wall for hours, unable to move. The air felt dead. The house felt like a museum of a life that no longer existed. Days passed, then weeks, then months. I tried to stay busy, but everything I touched reminded me of something broken. The mug she used, the blanket she folded, the chair she sat in. I kept finding little pieces of her life all over the place, pieces she left behind, pieces she probably didn't even care about. But to me, they were reminders that the woman who lied to me for months once walked through these rooms like she belonged here. It made my stomach twist, it made my chest tighten. But still, I couldn't bring myself to throw any of it away. Nights were the worst. I would lie down and stare at the ceiling. The darkness felt too big, too heavy. I kept replaying everything in my head. The way she touched him, The way she smiled at him. The way she looked guilty only after she got caught. I asked myself how long she had loved him. How long she had stopped loving me. How long I had been a stranger in my own marriage. The answers didn't matter, but the questions never stopped. They filled my mind until sleep became something I had to fight for. Sometimes I thought about calling someone, a friend, a neighbor, anyone. But I was tired of explaining myself. Tired of telling the story. Tired of letting people look at me with pity in their eyes. I didn't want pity. I didn't want advice. I didn't want to hear, "You'll be okay," from people who had no idea how deep betrayal cuts when you're old enough to know you won't get another lifetime to rebuild your heart. So I stayed quiet. I carried everything alone. I cooked simple meals, but most nights I didn't eat much. I would sit at the table staring at a half-empty plate, wondering how a life built over decades could fall apart in a single moment. I walked around the house like a ghost, touching walls that no longer felt warm, windows that no longer brought comfort, floors that no longer carried the sound of two people living together. I wasn't living. I was existing. Just existing. Sometimes I caught myself hoping she would call. Not because I wanted her back, but because a small part of me wanted to know if she still thought about the man she broke. But she didn't call. She didn't send a message. She didn't check if I was alive or dead. And that silence hurt more than her betrayal. It told me that I had been alone long before the divorce. I just didn't see it. There were mornings when I woke up and forgot for 1 second that she was gone. Then reality hit me all over again. I would sit on the edge of the bed with my head in my hands, feeling like someone punched the air out of me. Grief, betrayal, loneliness. They all felt the same now. Heavy, sharp, endless. I wanted to move on, but I didn't know how. I wanted to heal, but I didn't know where to start. I wanted to feel alive again, but every part of me felt worn out. Tired, finished. I didn't hate her. I didn't even hate the man she chose. I hated the emptiness she left behind, the emptiness I had to face alone. The loneliness didn't go away. It just sat beside me every day like an unwanted companion. And I learned to live with it because I had no choice. I was a man who gave everything he had to a family that slowly erased him. A man who loved deeply and paid the price for it. The days slowly settled into a new kind of life, a life I never asked for and never wanted. I woke up in a quiet house that felt too big for one man. I moved through rooms that still carried her smell, her touch, her shadow, even though she was gone. I tried to tell myself I was free, but freedom felt like another word for empty. I cooked breakfast alone, cleaned alone, sat on the couch alone. The TV played in the background just so I wouldn't hear the sound of my own loneliness. I never realized how loud silence could be until I had to live with it every single day. I went to the store less, spoke to people less, walked outside less. Everything felt heavier. Even simple things like opening the curtains or folding my clothes felt like work. Some days I didn't get out of bed until noon because getting up meant facing a day with no warmth, no comfort, no voice calling my name. I had spent years thinking love would carry me through old age. Instead, betrayal pushed me into a life where I had to rebuild myself, one slow breath at a time. I tried going out for coffee once, sat alone at a table while couples talked around me. Watching them laugh made something inside me twist. Not jealousy, just a deep reminder of what I used to have. A simple touch, a shared joke, someone sitting across from me because they wanted to. I finished my drink and left without saying a word. Even the fresh air outside felt strange, like it belonged to a world I no longer fit into. People told me to move on, but they didn't understand. Moving on isn't easy when the person you loved tore your heart apart quietly, slowly, while pretending everything was normal. I didn't miss her lies, but I missed the feeling of belonging to someone. I missed having a partner, a friend, someone who shared the weight of life with me. Now everything sat on my shoulders alone, and some days it felt too heavy to carry. I started cleaning the house more, not because it needed it, but because it gave my hands something to do. I scrubbed floors that used to carry her footsteps. I wiped countertops she once leaned on. I washed sheets she once slept on. Each task felt like peeling away another layer of the life we shared. I thought cleaning might erase the memories, but memories don't live in objects. They live in the heart, and mine was still bruised. I tried calling my son once. The phone rang and rang until voicemail picked up. I didn't leave a message. I didn't know what to say. "Your mother is gone," wasn't the truth. "Your mother betrayed me," wasn't something he needed to hear. "I miss you" felt too weak, too small for everything that had happened. So I hung up and sat there staring at the wall, wondering how a man could lose a son and a wife in the same lifetime and still keep going. Learning my new reality meant accepting that some people don't come back. Not because they died, but because they chose another life. My wife chose another man. My son chose another path. And I was left behind, not by accident, but because I wasn't enough for them to stay. That thought cut deeper than anything else. It made me question my worth, my past, my role as a father and a husband. I spent nights wondering what I could have done differently, even though deep down I knew the truth. People who want to leave will leave no matter what you do. I spent more time on the porch as the weeks passed. The sky became my company, the breeze my conversation. I sat there and watched cars pass, people laugh, families walk together. Each sight reminded me that life kept going, even when mine felt stuck. I forced myself to breathe, forced myself to keep moving, forced myself to accept that healing doesn't come fast. Healing doesn't come easy. Healing comes slowly, like a small light trying to break through thick darkness. This new reality wasn't one I chose, but it was one I had to face. A life without the woman I thought would grow old beside me. A life without the family I once held close. A life rebuilt from pain, betrayal, and deep loneliness. But even in all that, I took small steps. Steps toward myself, steps toward quiet strength, steps toward a future I couldn't see yet. I wasn't healed. I wasn't happy. But I was learning to live again, even if it was slow, even if it hurt, even if every day felt like starting from the bottom. I sit alone now, and the quiet feels different than before. It no longer crushes me the way it did in the beginning, but it hasn't become my friend either. It just sits with me, like an old wound that healed on the outside but still aches when the weather changes. I look back at everything. The marriage, the lies, the betrayal, the empty house, the long nights. And I understand one thing clearly. Love can break you in ways nothing else can. And when you are an old man, there is no time left to start over the way young people do. I think about the man I used to be. A husband, a father. Someone who believed loyalty meant something. Someone who thought his home was safe. Someone who trusted too much and looked away from the signs that his world was falling apart. I was blind because I wanted to believe in good things. I wanted to believe the woman beside me still loved me. I wanted to believe we were fighting grief together. Not letting grief push us into separate lives, but wanting doesn't change reality. And reality hit me hard the day I caught her with another man. Sometimes I ask myself if I should have confronted her earlier, or if I should have ignored the signs and kept pretending everything was fine, but lies never stay small. They grow, they spread. They turn a marriage into a quiet battlefield where only one person knows the war has already been lost. I didn't know. She did, and that truth still burns when I think about it for too long. But I learned something important. You cannot hold on to someone who let go of you a long time ago. I walk through this new life slowly, one day at a time. Sometimes I feel strong. Sometimes I feel like I'm made of thin glass. I miss having someone to talk to at night, someone to share small moments with, someone who knows how I take my coffee or why certain songs make me stop and breathe. But I don't miss her betrayal. I don't miss the silence she used as a weapon. I don't miss the lies she fed me while she gave her heart to someone else. Missing the memory of a person is not the same as wanting them back. I think about forgiveness sometimes. People say it's important. People say it helps you heal. Maybe that's true. But I don't feel forgiveness in my heart, yet I don't feel hate either. I just feel tired. Tired of giving love to people who didn't know how to handle it. Tired of reopening wounds that take too long to close. Tired of remembering things that hurt more than they should. Maybe forgiveness will come one day. Maybe it won't. But healing doesn't depend on forgiving the person who hurt you. Healing depends on choosing not to stay broken. Some nights I sit on my porch and watch the moon. I think about how she once sat beside me, her head on my shoulder, both of us talking about growing old together. And then I think about how easily she threw all of that away for a life that didn't last, a man who ran at the first sign of trouble. It makes me realize something painful but true. The person you love the most can be the one who destroys you the fastest, and you never see it coming until it's too late. But even with all the pain, I remind myself of one thing. I survived. I survived the betrayal. I survived the loneliness. I survived the nights when the house felt like a tomb. I am still here, breathing, moving, living. Maybe slower, maybe quieter, but still living. And that means something. It means I wasn't as weak as she thought I was. It means her betrayal didn't end me. It means I have a chance, even at this age, to find my own peace. Now, I sit with my thoughts and let them pass like waves. Some hurt, some calm me, some leave me empty. But all of them remind me that truth is better than lies. Even when the truth breaks your heart, I tell myself this every day. It is better to live alone in honesty than together in betrayal. And I believe that now. Truly. My final thought. I pretended to leave for a trip. But she had left our marriage long before I ever stepped out the door.